All right, this is the copyright disclaimer. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Fair use, fair use, fair use.
You people. You're not a race. You are a virus. You destroy the world. Everything beautiful you poison. You drag us from our homes. You rape our daughters, murder our sons. You crack our spines and do all you can to break our will. You stab us. Then you put the knife in our hand and tell us it's our fault. And if you don't do it yourself, you stand by, close your eyes, and pretend there's nothing wrong. And then you pray to your God to silence our screams so that you can enjoy the happiness that we built for you with our blood. But it's not your fault. It's the only way you know how to be. And the only thing that will change anything is if another virus comes along and does to you what you do to us. And I hope that happens very soon.
You understand how dysfunctional, how disruptive the white man, nobody on this planet has been able to live in peace with this fucking motherfucker. Because it's not in their nature. It's in their nature just to try to conquer and lie and kill. And when everything is going good, it just gotta go bad. Everybody chilling. Hey, what are you doing? It just gotta go bad. Mm-hmm. You punk motherfucker.
The Chicago race riot of 1919. On July 27, 1919, an African-American teenager drowned in Lake Michigan after violating the unofficial segregation of Chicago's beaches and being stoned by a group of white youths. His death, and the police's refusal to arrest the white man whom eyewitnesses identified as causing it, sparked a week of rioting between gangs of black and white Chicagoans, concentrated on the South Side neighborhood surrounding the stockyards. When the riots ended on August 3, 15 whites and 23 blacks had been killed and more than 500 people injured. An additional 1,000 black families had lost their homes when they were torched by rioters. Contents: growing racial tensions. A drowning in Lake Michigan. Lasting impact. Growing racial tensions. The Red Summer of 1919 marked the culmination of steadily growing tensions surrounding the great migration of African Americans from the rural South to the cities of the North that took place during World War I. When the war ended in late 1918, thousands of servicemen returned home from fighting in Europe to find that their jobs in factories, warehouses and mills had been filled by newly arrived Southern blacks or immigrants. Amid financial insecurity, racial and ethnic prejudices ran rampant. Meanwhile, African American veterans who had risked their lives fighting for the causes of freedom and democracy found themselves denied basic rights such as adequate housing and equality under the law, leading them to become increasingly militant. Did you know? In the summer of 1919, Richard J. Daley, who served as Chicago's powerful mayor from 1955 until his death in 1976, was a 17-year-old member of an Irish-American organization called the Hamburg Athletic Club. Though an investigation later identified the club among the instigators of the rioting, Daley and his supporters never admitted that he participated in the violence. In this fraught atmosphere, the white supremacist Ku Klux Klan organization revived its violent activities in the South, including 64 lynchings in 1918 and 83 in 1919. In the summer of 1919, race riots would break out in Washington, D.C., Knoxville, Tennessee, Longview, Texas, Phillips County, Arkansas, Omaha, Nebraska, and most dramatically Chicago. The city's African-American population had increased from 44,000 in 1909 to more than 100,000 as of 1919. Competition for jobs in the city's stockyards was particularly intense, pitting African Americans against whites, both native-born and immigrants. Tensions ran highest on the city's south side, where the great majority of black residents lived, many of them in old, dilapidated housing and without adequate services. A drowning in Lake Michigan on July 27, 1919. A 17-year-old African-American boy named Eugene Williams was swimming with friends in Lake Michigan when he crossed the unofficial barrier, located at 29th Street, between the city's white and black beaches. A group of white men threw stones at Williams, hitting him, and he drowned. When police officers arrived on the scene, they refused to arrest the white man whom black eyewitnesses pointed to as the responsible party. Angry crowds began to gather on the beach, and reports of the incident, many distorted or exaggerated, spread quickly. Violence soon broke out between gangs and mobs of black and white, concentrated in the South Side neighborhood surrounding the stockyards. After police were unable to quell the riots, the state militia was called in on the fourth day, but the fighting continued until August 3. Shootings, beatings and arson attacks eventually left 15 whites and 23 blacks dead, and more than 500 more people, around 60% black, injured. An additional 1,000 black families were left homeless after rioters torched their residences. Lasting impact in the aftermath of the rioting, some suggested implementing zoning laws to formally segregate housing in Chicago, or restrictions preventing blacks from working alongside whites in the stockyards and other industries. Such measures were rejected by African American and liberal white voters. However, city officials instead organized the Chicago Commission on Race Relations to look into the root causes of the riots and find ways to combat them. The commission, which included 6 white men and 6 black, suggested several key issues including competition for jobs, inadequate housing options for blacks, inconsistent law enforcement and pervasive racial discrimination, but improvement in these areas would be slow in the years to come. President Woodrow Wilson publicly blamed whites for being the instigators of race-related riots in both Chicago and Washington, D.C., and introduced efforts to foster racial harmony, including voluntary organizations and congressional legislation. In addition to drawing attention to the growing tensions in America's urban centers, the riots in Chicago and other cities in the summer of 1919 marked the beginning of a growing willingness among African Americans to fight for their rights in the face of oppression and injustice.
This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, verse 10, and it reads, For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth that be like unto the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you I say Shalom. This is your brother Ayashar Barazal from the Indianapolis branch of the Great Millstone, coming back at you with another lesson that is edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. All right, this is another installment of our camp series called For Thy Violence Against Thy Brother Jacob, where we go throughout history identifying just a number of events where this devil has, took many of our lives, shed our blood all over this land, and just pretty much been a whole damn devil. All right, and this series is to build a case, which is already recorded. These are the things that we do know. The Lord knows the things that are unknown, because He says, He records everything. This is Proverbs. Getting this on another screen. Proverbs 15:3, and it reads, The eyes of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai are in every place, beholding the evil and the good. All right, so the Lord has seen everything. Esau doesn't think that he has, according to Psalms 10. He think the Lord is not paying attention to him, but he sees everything. And like I said, we're using his own history against him to build a case to bring a devastating recompense to this devil when his rulership is over. Okay, devastating. He's not going to know what hit him. All right. But it's going to be hard, and it's going to be done by men in a godlike state. All right. No, actually, we will be gods again at that time. All right. And immortality, you know, in our full power, the might will be back in our hands that was taken away as part of the curses. He won't stand a chance. All right. And we're going to love every bit of it. So, yeah. Yeah. And going back to that scripture, his shame is starting to cover him. Look at his terminology now. Black fatigue, yeah. He don't like the truth of his own history. I just saw a couple videos yesterday. AI is buying up all the rare history books, recording them and then shredding the books. But I really think that stuff is going to turn on him. That AI is going to turn on him, and be part of his destruction. All right. So yeah, it says, the shame is going to cover him. All of your history is coming back on you, and you're going to be cut off forever. That's right. After you go into slavery, twice as long or twice as hard as we did, but we were in captivity, but ours will be in righteousness. You're going to be put out of the earth, cut off forever. The name, the remnant, the son and nephew of Esau, Edom, will never exist again once you're put out of the face of the earth. All right? No more rulership. Nothing. You're out of here. Gone, complete. The terror of the earth will be no more. All right? So without further ado, let me go ahead and get into this article. And I'll put a link to this article in the description box. It's from one of our notable websites that we use to do these videos. This one is from EJI, which means Equality Justice Initiative. And like I said, I'll put a link to it in the description box of this video. And it says, white mob terrorized black communities on Chicago's South Side. It says on August 3rd, 1919, several days of racial violence targeting black communities in Chicago, Illinois, came to an end after intervention by the National Guard. After a week of gunfire, beatings, and burnings, 23 African Americans and 15 white people had been killed, 537 people injured, and 1,000 African American families left homeless. All right. And that's, because they were after Jake. Let me get that Lamentations 4 and 18. Slakia. It says, they hunt our steps, that we cannot go in our streets. Our end is near, our days are fulfilled, for our end is come. And that's what it, was like. They were terrorizing Jake. All right. To no end, for no reason. All right. Just because. And we'll get into that reason. All right. I mean, it's just a fucking devil, man, and he needs to go. Back to the article. It says, during the Great Migration, Chicago was a popular destination for many black people leaving the South in search of economic opportunity and a refuge from racial terror lynching. Yep, that's where my parents came from, the South, and came to Chicago. It says, from 1910 to 1920, the city's black population increased from 44,000 to 109,000 people. The new arrivals joined thousands of white immigrants also relocated to Chicago in search of work. Many black newcomers settled on Chicago's South Side and neighborhoods adjacent to communities of European immigrants, close to plentiful industrial jobs. All right. So it's all about, having work, making an honest living. And they hated that. All right. It says, although African American people had fled the southern brand of racial violence, once in Chicago, they still faced racial animosity and discrimination that created challenging living conditions like overcrowded housing, inequality at work, and police brutality and segregation. So, unlike the South, the racism in Chicago was covert, more subtle, more hidden, surprise you. Okay. It says, in the second decade of the 20th century, segregation in Chicago was not as legally regulated as southern cities. See, that's what I was just saying. But unwritten rules restricted black people from many neighborhoods, workplaces, and public areas, including beaches. All right. It says, so yeah, they were just doing this for no reason. Let me get this. This is Book of Psalms 109, verses 1 through 3. Verse 1, and it reads, to the chief musician, a psalm of David. Hold not thy peace, O Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai of my praise. For the mouth of the wicked and the mouth of the deceitful are open against me. They have spoken against me with a lying tongue. And that's what they do, to keep you out of these places, make up shit, propaganda. All right. Why you're not worthy of living and working and living in certain areas and working in certain fields. All right. It says, um, they compass me about also with words of hatred. All right. And we know that hatred is ancient, going on with Esau, Edom, going all the way back to Genesis 27, verses 38 through 41. All right. And fought against me without a cause. No reason. No reason. Just found a way to mess with Jake. I did a video yesterday. They hate our happiness. All right. Anything that, uh, Esau feels we're better than him at, or it makes him feel below us, he comes to destroy it. It's that envy. Damn devil. All right. Go back to the article. All right. It says on July 27th, 1919, a black youth named Eugene Williams drowned at a Chicago beach after a white man struck him with a rock for drifting to the white side of the Lake Michigan. All right, to the white side of Lake Michigan. And apparently there was some imaginary line in the water that he accidentally floated into. How do you draw a line in the water? That's just the ignorance of this devil. You know, as big as Lake Michigan is, and he crossed the line. There was no, I read other sources. There was no boys out there that said, that restricted you from passing to a certain area of the water. You know how big Lake Michigan is? Jeez, it's just this bastard has got to go, man. He's got to go. The Lord has just got to get rid of him. He is, just an ultimate nuisance. All right. So he's the plague of the earth. All right. It says when police refused to arrest the man who had thrown the rock, black witnesses protested. White mobs responded with widespread violence that lasted a week. A week. A whole week. Not to say that they did anything, they protested. So they didn't bring harm into anyone. This was Esau bringing harm to them. All right. That's just what this devil does. All right, but the Lord's going to deal with him for sure. This is Ezekiel chapter 35, verses 5 and 6. And this is talking about Esau, Edom. You start at the top for like context. It says, because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Therefore, as I live, saith Yahweh power, I will prepare thee unto blood, and blood shall pursue thee. Since thou hast not hated blood, even blood shall pursue thee. Okay? And that, his bloodshed, is going to be our reparations. We don't want the money now. It ain't worth it. You know, your bloodshed is the reparations for the hell that you put on us on this land. All right. This is book of Numbers 35 and 33. It says, so ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land, and the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Yeah. Eye for an eye, life for a life. Okay. Only way that the blood of this land is going to be cleaned up is by shedding yours. Okay. And who's going to do that cleaning? It's the nation of Israel. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, beginning in verse 19. It says, Egypt shall be a desolation. This Egypt is a house of bondage. And Edom shall be a desolate wilderness. All right. All the places where you've dwelt. It says, for the violence against the children of Judah. That's the southern kingdom. And we know there was a lot of bloodshed. All right. And this is who we're talking about right now in this article. The bloodshed of the southern kingdom of Israel, Judah. Okay. And it says, because they have shed innocent blood in their land. It says, but Judah, verse 20, but Judah shall dwell forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation. Okay, Judah dwelling forever, and Jerusalem from generation to generation, that's immortality. So this means that we're in our new glorified bodies with the law, statutes, and commandments on our inward parts, and having all of our might and spiritual power back. Okay. Esau is already a weakling, when the playing field is level, hand to hand. He's a big bad dude on the keyboard. Okay. But unless he has a special skill set, or, unless he's outgunned you, dude is a pussy. That's all to it. That's all he is. All right. Weak. Punk. All right. Keyboard warrior, until you're in front of him. All right. And he says, and for verse 21, for I will cleanse their blood that I have not cleansed. All right. That's how he's going to do it, by the hand of his people. All right. That's how he's going to get rid of Edom. For Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai dwelleth in Zion. He's going to use his people to shed your blood for all of our blood that you shed in this land. All right. And there will be nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do against people with God-like power? All right. Nothing. And again, his people are going to do it. The nation of Israel. All right. This is Ezekiel 25, beginning in verse 12. It says, thus saith Yahweh power, because that Edom have dealt against the house of Judah, southern kingdom, by taking vengeance, and have greatly offended and revenged himself upon them because of the birthright. Verse 13, therefore thus saith Yahweh power, I will stretch out mine hand upon Edom, and will cut off man and beast from it, and I will make it desolate from Teman, and they of Dedan shall fall by the sword. All right, here's the point. He says, and I will lay my vengeance upon Edom by the hand of my people Israel, and they shall do in Edom according to mine anger and according to my fury, and they shall know my vengeance, saith Yahweh power. So that's what I was telling you. He's going to use his people in their glorified state to take this damn devil out for good. First enslave him and then take him out, you know, when it's all said and done. I said they're going to disappear from the face of the earth. All right. That's Obadiah 1 and 18. It says, and the house of Jacob, that's the southern kingdom, shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph, that's the northern kingdom, a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Yahweh Bashem Yahushua have spoken it. There shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau. Okay? So you're all going to be done away with forever, but you're not done away with yet. You know, you're not done away with yet. You got a bill to pay in blood. All right, back to the article. It says, when the police refused to arrest the man who had thrown the rock, black witnesses protested. White mobs responded with widespread violence that lasted for a week, and they refused to arrest him. We always bring that scripture out. Psalms 73 and 5. He is not in trouble as other men, neither is he plagued as other men. You know, that's how we know he's Cain too. You know, can't touch him. The Lord's gonna come against us. You know. It says, over that terrifying period, white mobs attacked black people on sight, set fire to more than 30 properties on Chicago's South Side, and even attempted to attack Providence Hospital. Yeah, I remember that place. Yeah, it's over in the, near the Hyde Park area. Providence Hospital. Yeah, I actually worked on it in my profession when it became the John H. Senstack Ambulatory Clinic back in the early 90s. It says, which served mostly black patients, and the same thing now. It says 6,000 National Guard troops were called in to quell the unrest, and many black people left Chicago after the terrifying experience. All right. So Jake just wanted peace, wanted to work, but this devil wasn't going to let him have it. All right, because he was doing better than the devil. All right, he says, those state officials announced a plan to investigate and punish all parties responsible for violence and destruction of property during the unrest. Many more black people were arrested than white. Okay, and that's what it is. Why is that? The 13th Amendment. You know, that's the legal way to get so-called black people back into slavery. All right. Because that's, you know, that 13th Amendment was specifically, who were other slaves here? You can't count those Irish, those were indentured servants. You know, we were the only ones under shadow slavery. All right. And it said it's only abolished. Remember, this was supposed to be abolished in 1865 when it actually wasn't. All those black codes had become laws. All right. So that when you were prosecuted, you know, and got a felony, you went back to the plantation that you came from. You know, stop playing in our face. You never intended on letting us go. All right. And that's, you know, Jeremiah 50 and 33 says, you know, they refuse to let us go. Just like ancient Pharaoh. All right. It says, the subsequent grand jury proceedings resulted in the indictment of primarily black defendants. Yep. Later testifying before a commission investigating the roots of the Chicago violence, The Cook County District Attorney admitted this was due to bias in his department of white officers. All right. Says there is no doubt there are great many police officers were grossly unfair in making arrests, he said in 1922. They shut their eyes to offense committed by white men when they were very vigorous in getting all the colored men that they could get. Man, what's this? I want to say Proverbs 24:28, I think. Khan says, be not a witness against thy neighbor without cause, and deceive not with thy lips. All right. That's exactly what they were doing. Those police officers. Okay. When it was clear, they were just protesting. Yet they were the ones being arrested. Man, yeah, this devil got to be done away with. All right. And that appears to be the completion of the article. And I'll close out with this. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14, and verse 21. And it reads, prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. All right, so yeah, a lot of those people who did that probably already dead by now. But as you can see here, according to the scriptures, for you so-called white people that really believe in the Bible, so-called white people, here's what it's telling you what your fate is. You're his descendants, his children. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers. So you got to pay for the stuff your father did. All right, your forefathers, your ancestors. That they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. You will never, ever, ever, never, ever, 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 ever be in rulership again once you're done this time. All right? You won't be the standard for shit, but nothing but evil, death, and destruction. All right? Verse 22 says, for I will rise up against them, saith Yahweh Bashem Yahushai of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. So your whole seed line is going to be wiped out. It's going to be wiped out, and we can't wait for it. All right, so with that, I hope this lesson was edifying to the elect body of the nation of Israel. Once again, giving all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak HaKodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well in teaching me this 100% truth. Salutations to them and my fellow Akim who labor in this truth week in and week out on the highways and byways. Also, salutations to the hopeful elect of the scattered 12 tribes of Israel, scattered to the four corners of the earth, that be likened to the speckled bird, also known as your Israelite foreigners and your so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. To you, I say Shalom, Kwam Yasharallah, Abba Babal. Shalom, we got next.